Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Baka podcast.
Baka. It's amazing how every time you open your mouth, you prove you're an idiot.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Baka. We are an anime podcast. Every 2 weeks, we watch an anime. We come together, we talk about it like we're some kind of illiterate book club, and then we turn discussion over to our comment section so that you can discuss the anime that we have watched. We're watching the first half of Welcome to Demon School, Iruma Kun, the first 13 episodes per a fan request. That we review this show, and so we have watched that, and we'll be watching the second half next. So this is just going to cover those first 13 episodes, and to discuss it, I need the help of my co-hosts. First off, we have the lightning scar to my Harry Potter, Jeremy. How you doing?
I'm not doing too bad. School's finally out, and just working on the property, and actually, I tried out a new game today called Satellite Rain. Had a little bit of time, and it's kind of like a cyberpunk. I think what it's supposed to be is that old game. You know what it is, Jason. I can't remember what it's called.
Oh yeah, I know.
You know old games. It's a cyberpunk game where you've got like a handful of little people, and you run around and say, "Oh my god, this is horrible! I can't remember."
This is amazing, Troy. This is riveting entertainment.
Oh my god. Anyways, it's just not up my alley. That's where I was headed with it. Real time sucks. I want my turn in this game.
Let's go over to our other host. He is the nose to my Lord Voldemort, Jason. How are you doing?
Apparently not existing.
You're kind of there, fleshy and slutty.
That's wonderful. Doing fantastic. Oh yeah. I was so excited to tell you that I made it to 208 mods in my newest Skyrim run. Because I had to load up Special Edition because there were a couple new mods that came out that I had to try. So I've been super busy modding and cleaning mods. It's been a blast.
Did you actually get to play it all yet? Or are you still in the mod part?
Absolutely. It's stable. I've run from Whiterun to Riften and back. Yeah.
I've never seen a fan base so hard up for a sequel. Like, at this point, it's just cruel that they haven't made the next Elder Scrolls. It's so mean. I went back and played Skyrim on my fridge. Again.
Dude, so there's people are so like wanting the next thing that they're consistently adding mods to make the game look like a next gen game. It's like the animation mods and the texture mods, and it's just like it's ridiculous. Of course, and then there's that subculture that we can't get into because we're family friendly.
And my name is Troy.
MXR gets into it.
My brother recently started listening to our podcast, and he's been a real Chet from Weird Science, Bill Paxton's character, about it. And he mentioned that you guys always talk about video games when we're an anime podcast.
Yeah,
but
pretty normal.
I watched 1917 because I'm a movie buff, and while I'm not super into war movies, it was a good war movie. The cinematography and camera work with that movie blew my mind. Because it's filmed like it's all one shot, so there's never any cuts or breaks. It's a real time of a soldier going from one side of World War I to the other, and just like it's insane. It was real fun to watch. But I'm also, because of quarantine, gotten really addicted to watching Hot Ones on YouTube, watching guys eat spicy chicken wings while they do
Dude,
interviews.
I love that show.
It's so good. And they ask the best interview questions. And they put in the work to get like real personal questions. Like, hey, we heard you grew up in this town. Which of these local diners do you think is the best? And you see the guests just like light up, like, oh, I've never got to talk about this before. That's so cool, and I have an answer. And then their mouth's on fire, so they're also getting pissed off.
The one with Gordon Ramsay is pretty amazing. I love that one.
Yes, it was.
1917. That's the newer one where they've got a very limited window of time to get to another soldier's platoon before they basically walk into suicide.
Yeah,
is that right?
Yeah, 2 soldiers have to basically cross to the front lines of the war to tell a battalion not to attack because it's a trap. Because Germany is doing like feint retreats and then letting them come into traps. And they cut off the telephone wires, so you two have to cross. And you have this many hours to do it, and it was so good.
Nice.
I had to go back and like look up how they did some shots because it's obvious like they're walking through trenches and stuff. It's like, okay, so there's got to be a camera attached to a guy. There's no way they could drive this on a trolley or swing it from a crane. This has to be attached to a guy, and then they'd go over like a pond, but the camera would then go through the water without disturbing the water. I'm like, okay, so it can't be attached to a guy. This has to be floating above the water now. But we've walked like 100 yards. What's happening? And it's because they had they invented a thing that they could actually pull the camera off a guy's harness and then put it onto a crane without you noticing, without it jiggling at all. So it just smoothly goes from walking to flying to, and then another guy catches it on the other side and starts walking with it again. It was so cool. Okay, we need to talk about the anime.
Syndicate. That was the game. Got it.
Okay.
I think even I've heard of that.
Yep.
I know
Yeah,
every
man.
listener was waiting with bated breath.
Yep. I can't leave you hanging.
All right. Let's talk about Welcome to Demon School, Iruma Kun. Let's do our non-spoiler review of the first 13 episodes. Jason, technically this is your pick, even though you did it for a fan who had the request. What did you think?
So I watched the first episode and I wanted to instantly turn it off. It's got all the makings of an anime that all the tropes that I hate. And especially very end where there's the chibi stuff I just don't like. This grates on me so bad. After episode 3, the comedy hit just right. It's got all the makings of a really good harem anime without being harem so far. And it's funny. I'm enjoying myself. It's not blow me out of the water. I need to tell everyone on my social media feeds to watch this, but it's good. I'm enjoying myself.
All right, Jeremy, what do you think?
I was in the same boat as Jason, especially at episode 3. But I do have to say there's certain characters that are just stand out, fantastic, and I can't help but laugh at so many of the things that they do on there. So for those characters, I actually do enjoy it. Yeah.
I very similar answer to you guys. I was like, man, this is just really silly and lighthearted and clean. And honestly, the story's not really drawing me in because there's not really much. It doesn't feel like anything in the story is important. There's just no drama to it because everything's so lighthearted. But I laughed every episode. And honestly, it was refreshing to not have to tell my 5-year-old to leave the room after like watching Beastars and Babylon. Like we've had some more mature content lately, and it was like, oh, I could watch this in front of my kid, and all he sees funny birds. No one's cursing, no one's getting bloody. It's just a really good natured show. And actually, a couple of my older daughters would like walk into the room like, this is adorable. What's going on? I'm like, it is really adorable, isn't it? That's kind of weird.
Except for that one that's got one eye and she's pink, and that's kind of creepy.
She's awesome.
When I first started watching, I was comparing it a lot to like Rosario Vampire. It has a very similar plot line, but it's the harem without any sexiness at all. Like that's not a factor at all. If we stopped watching it, I wouldn't be brokenhearted and be like, oh, well, we gotta keep going. But I'm gonna remember the jokes fondly as we talk about them. So I'm kind of somewhere in the middle with you guys. All right, let's talk about the intro and the outro. What did you guys think?
I was not a fan of either.
I couldn't stand the outro. It's so grating. Yes. And the intro just the lyrics felt nonsensical a lot.
Dude, that Bobby just drilled into my head for literally days.
Party, 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 party.
Yes. Is that what he said?
Come on, girl. I don't know.
Oh, okay. I don't either. It sounded like he was saying Bobby, and so I was like, I don't understand what's going on.
Yeah, the thing, like, it's hard to know is like, is that an English word you're pronouncing wrong, or is that a Japanese word and I have no concept of language? It could be
course,
either.
I just can't be bothered to go check and look it up, but yeah,
that'd be a lot of work.
It would.
The intro when it first hit, I was like, oh man, this is like 90s retro, something off the WB, Digimon kind of intro. By the 13th episode, I was into it. I was dancing along.
Oh my god.
The ending, I don't like the song, but there's a note that the singer hits where she goes, choo! That only a Japanese pop idol female singer can hit that, pronounce it that way. And it's so dang adorable that I listen to the outro every time just to hear her say that. Otherwise, it was stupid and pointless. All right, let's go on to spoiler territory then. Again, we're only spoiling the first 13 episodes. We don't know what happens, so when we make theories and guesses, we will sound like idiots since this series has finished airing. And you have been warned. Spoiler warning has been dropped. We start with an introduction that explains to us that there is no longer a demon king in Demon World, and the throne is empty while we see the main character sitting on the throne. So it's basically telling us the ending of the series. These are not high stakes that we are dealing with. But we then get to meet our main character. He is a young world traveler. What is he, like 14, 15 years old?
Yeah, 14.
14. He's working on a tuna ship that's in a storm, and the tuna are
commercial fishing boat.
And when the story starts with a demon showing up saying, hey, just so you know, your parents sold your soul to me. I'm taking you to Demon World. And he does. And this is because
the tuna's about to kill him.
He is about to die, yes. A frozen tuna is about to land on his head.
Yeah, so the last one he was not going to dodge, and it stopped within inches of his face. And then that's when he shows up, Sullivan.
That was my thought as well, but I actually tend to doubt myself because of his deadly dodge thing and the fact that his parents sold him. It wasn't like the guy came up. But you think it was that the parents said when he dies you can take him, and they didn't say you can have him now?
Do you think that's important to the story?
I don't think
totally.
So.
Okay.
Well, because deadly dodge is like his thing, and if he failed in the first episode, that kind of means he's not perfect dodger.
Didn't say perfect, but anyways, let's go on.
Yeah, it did. It says he can dodge anything.
The worst thing this anime did, as soon as they did, I was so pissed. They're like, "Hey, here's power rankings." I'm like, "God dang it!" There's an argument with Jeremy ruining the horizon.
You bet.
Here it comes.
Oh, I hate power levels. Okay, so let's talk about Iruma, our main character. He's a short, blue-haired, spiky-haired, weird cowlick hair boy. He's our main character. What do you guys think of him?
He's about as bland as every other harem protagonist. He's adorable though, and I kind of like him as a vehicle for this particular story. Because he does it well. And I think one thing I like about him, because, this almost fits into the isekai genre, where you get taken to another world kind of thing, and he's another one of these characters that has 0 power level, and he has to rely on others in order to survive in this world. Which I find it I won't get into it now, but the one thing I find funny in this very first episode is his grandpa says, "If you don't agree to my terms, I'm gonna eat you," when I don't think that would be the case in this world. But in any event, yeah, he's all right. He's, like I said, he's pretty bland.
Yeah. Yeah, he's definitely bland. I really thought the way that the first episode introduced him that we were going to have a really interesting character, because he looks menacing on that chair, in the first few 10 seconds of the episode. But yeah, no, that's a big lie. I mean, maybe he'll become that way in the end, but I really don't I'm not inclined to think that's really what's going to happen. But yeah, every time I would see those cut to commercial and then cut back of his face, and just even the way that he cocks his head and the way that they drew the smile, it's like, oh my God, he just reeks of adorable. It's overwhelming. It's too much. And yeah, so
I think the one thing we have to
to
keep in mind is he is a child. I mean, he's 14. Yeah. He's not this budding teenager, about to hit adulthood. So
yeah, you're right. And I guess in that way, it's more like what, Naruto? Is that the age, approximately? I mean, I'm just thinking of I'm just thinking of what anime I've seen where they actually did have characters that were this young, and they still try to make them seem cool, and that's just not a thing they're trying to do with him.
Yeah,
it's interesting.
The only thing I find interesting about him is his relationship with his parents, and I actually got frustrated. It's a pet peeve of mine, because child love is unconditional. A young child, and they show his parents hey, yeah, clean the toilet, and just manipulating him. And I'm like, you're horrible parents, and I don't want him to have had horrible parents. I guess as I was watching this, I'm like, I want his parents to have some redeeming value, because there's this. His internal conflict is, do I ever want to go home? And it's really, there's no need at this point, based on what we know about your family. And his one character flaw is that he can't say no, so he's Jim Carrey and Yes Man also at the same time. Which the anime will never let you forget. Anytime they're like, hey, do something, and he's like, yes, and then the anime will go, hey, just remember, he's a pushover. like you're gonna forget at that point.
Which, that's actually another interesting thing about him, is that he is such a pushover and he's so innocent and pure that even coming from a family situation where his parents mistreated him like that, he still winds up being perfectly good.
Mm-hmm.
He's not bitter.
Honestly, and the reasons I used it for the intro, I see a lot of parallels in this anime with Harry Potter. A guy who is treated bad and forced to live under the stairs by his uncle and aunt, and then but he's the kindest, sweetest hearted wizard boy in the whole world.
Yep.
All right. Moving on from him, going then to the demon who has abducted him, who explains you were sold to me by your parents, and my wish is for you to become my grandson. I want a grandchild, and it's going to be you. Now, this is Sullivan, who insists on being called Grandpa for the rest of the anime, who we find out is one of the top 3 most powerful demons in the world. He's even more powerful than his ranking shows. He doesn't want to rank up and show he's more powerful. And I guess, like we said, he's like, I'll eat you if you say no. And I went into this anime okay, here's a guy with a plan. Here's a guy who's thinking 10 steps ahead. And then we find out, no, he really just wanted a grandchild really bad.
I still suspect that it has something to do with his plan, but it's a small suspicion now.
I don't know, man. That last scene kind of really debunked that really hard for him.
Where he's like, I have grandchild too. Yeah, I know what you mean.
What do you think of him, Jason?
I like him. He's adorably irritating. At the same time, he does seem to have like this societal manipulation in mind. He's not trying to hurt our main character, but he's using him as a vehicle to affect the society around him, and he does it in episode after episode. And it's interesting because I think he's definite. Like, my theory is that he's grooming him to be Demon King, right? And obviously the show's not hiding that in the intro, but I think that one thing this show has going for it that I have to give it credit for is its setups and executions on its jokes and story plots are pretty spotless. And this here is a setup for later episodes. So I thought he was a good character.
He is one of my favorite characters. I found him very funny. I found the grandpa jokes work very well. The way he just kind of seems oblivious to the fish out of water situation he's created is just like, hey, yeah, go to school and don't get eaten. Don't let them find out that they want to eat you. Also, I'm the principal of the school. It is interesting that Iruma has to choose to be his grandson. He's like, this has to be of free will. You have to, even though I own your soul, you have to choose to be my grandson. But Iruma can't say no to any request, so he agrees. And then it immediately goes into, okay, well, now that you're my demon grandson, you're going to go to the most prestigious school, which this anime is not like heavy art. It's very simplistic, but literally all we see of this world is his house, a craggly road, and then the school, and that's the world. And then everyone flies. I'm guessing there's flying islands in this world. That's how it's working, or just really tall peaks.
It looks like flying islands, yeah.
Yeah.
Some of the diagrams they draw actually show that it's not connected to anything on the bottom, so I'm guessing all of them are.
But our view of this world is just literally this house to this school and then back and forth. When he goes to school, and we also meet a character named Opera, who is the servant of Grandpa, who steals the show so many times. My favorite one is when he brings tea for Sullivan, and he starts drinking it, and Sullivan's like, "Wait, isn't that my tea?" He's like, "What?"
Yeah. Just completely ignores him the entire time he's drinking.
I'm pretty sure that was supposed to be my tea. Yeah, he goes. Iruma goes to school, and then they sing the school song, which is literally just a chant about how much they want to eat humans and how great eating humans is.
That was great. That was awesome.
Got this big assembly, and then the teachers call up the top student of the first years, and he comes up, and then while he's walking up, they're like, actually, no, we're going to have Iruma do the opening ceremony. And so Sullivan's like, my grandson will do it. So he comes up instead, and that makes this top student angry. And he's holding the paper, and there's a secret incantation written from Grandpa that says, hey, just read this. And he starts saying it, and everyone's like freaking out, like, oh my gosh, what's going on? And it turns out it's a forbidden spell for non-tripping.
Yeah.
I don't think that was the reason everyone was freaking out. Everyone was freaking out because he was using forbidden language to say the spell, and if he had messed up, it literally would have killed him.
He would die. Yeah, that's why it's a forbidden spell, because you'll die if you use it. But the benefit of the spell is you won't trip all day.
Right.
You cannot fall down.
Yep.
I think there's a subset of spells with this language, but that's
it's like I guess it's the equivalent of like going up on school stage, lighting a hoop on fire and jumping through for no reason and being like, Pasadena High! Yeah! So you gotta remember, Iruma's whole goal at this point is don't stand out, okay? No one will notice me, and then they won't figure out what I am, and I won't be eaten. And now he just became the most infamous first year, basically going up and flipping off the crowd, and So then that top student challenges into a duel, and apparently he's a fire demon. He uses fire spells, and we learned about Iruma's super dodge ability, where he has spent so many years almost dying that he's gotten very good at avoiding dying.
Crisis avoidance or something like that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The crowd that's watching this fight assumes, oh, he's so strong, he's not even fighting back. Like, this isn't a challenge for him. They end up, like, he tries to tackle him and he dodges that, but then he tries to stop him from hitting a girl. And because of the no tripping spell, when they fall, he ends up suplexing him into the crowd. This demon student then proclaims himself as a servant to Iruma. This is the character Asmodeus, also known as also known as Azaz. Thoughts on Asmodeus?
This character I can't stand. Like, he's so bipolar. It's really rough to watch. He's got this outward appearance of tough guy and I will burn you to ashes at a moment's notice. And then he's, can I get you a bouquet of flowers, Iruma Kun? Like, it's kind of gross to watch him grovel to him. And I think it's a little overdone. But of course, you know, this character's entire wardrobe is pink and everything about him is flamboyant and not I guess maybe flamboyant is not the right word. It's more of a flashy.
Eccentric.
Yes, eccentric.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, he delivers some decent jokes throughout the show, but I didn't like him as a character.
Yeah, I thought that I mean, if there's one word that I would pick that just kind of, I think, defines this show, it is eccentric. Just about every character in one way or another has some strange oddity about them. And for him, yeah, I think it is that bipolar nature, how he's got this sort of, I don't know, sometimes it seems like he's got that facade going, but other times it seems like he's genuine. Like, I really do want to crush these people that are in the way in the hallway because they aren't noticing you. Whereas other times he's just like, well, I'm just lost in thought. Don't bother me. You know, it's hard to tell with him, but I do find him to be kind of just he doesn't seem to be the center of any jokes. He just seems to be the support, especially when it comes to Clara, who we'll talk about later. But among them, he's the weakest, I think.
Yeah,
he really shined for me when they were spying on him. Those episodes, he shined pretty well.
I think
he's like a support for Clara there.
Yeah, I think he makes a great straight man to Clara, and I think their duo works very well. And that is more because of Clara. She just needs a straight man to make her antics that much funnier. But he does play that well. How he's kind of the butt of the jokes. She's always on his back. And I kind of like the big brother thing he's got going with her. I do 100% agree about the bipolar thing. It was my biggest issue with him. He is like the coolest guy in the school, and he knows it, and he's confident. And when he's that character, I really like the character. But then when he's with Iruma, he's like super subservient, and not just like, hey man, I have super respect for you, and I'm always going to be loyal to you and got your side. He's like, I'm your boy, and I will tuck you in at night, and do you want me to rub your feet? And it's a complete turnaround that doesn't fit with how the character is presented. Some of my favorite scenes with him is when he's facing off with Sabnok, and they're like about to fight, and I'm like, oh yeah, there's the Azaz that I like, you know. And I don't mind that he's really good friends. It just doesn't seem like he's someone who would enjoy that.
Right.
It's almost like he's under a charm spell.
Yeah. Like I said, and not that it's not that he would just like being loyal and, you know, being a part of this team, but the fact that he's so, I don't even know the word for it, but you know what I'm saying. He's just so genuinely happy to be a servant. Seems weird.
I think it gets better after they have the friends talk. I think it gets a little better at like how subservient he's trying to be.
I didn't find him eccentric though. At least the regular version of him. He just seemed like I'm the rich kid. They even mention in the end that his father is one of the 13 who's too busy to show up.
That's right.
They say Asmodeus, and I was like, the student. I'm like, oh no, because that would be their last name, so it would be his father or mother, I guess. So he comes from prestige, and he just seemed like the rich prestige. I own this place, and it is kind of a cool twist that he's not going to be the jerk the entire time, but it's such a flip that it doesn't make sense that he was a jerk in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and that's our first episode, and except for that little fun cartoon at the end about the girl that was saved, now has a crush on the main character.
Super important.
Now, in the pre-spoiler section, you guys mentioned that you didn't get hooked till episode 3. I got hooked on this second episode. This episode works very well for me. This is it starts with the teacher Caligo, who if we're gonna go with the Harry Potter theme, he is Professor Snape. To Iruma's Harry Potter, he is the jerk teacher, but he's very powerful and he's very smart. But he's a dick.
I love those characters so much.
and honestly, I was like, oh, like the way they introduced him in this episode, he's looking in a mirror and he's like, Iruma, I will take care of you. And the mirror shatters. I'm like, oh, our villain. But no, the mirror shattering is actually not good. It wasn't him being
omen.
cool. It was bad luck for him. It ruins his life. That's such a cool twist.
Yep.
Basically, after breakfast with Solomon, Iruma gets an alarm clock that's literally just a little monster that screams at him.
I want one of those. I want one of those.
Sounds
I love it so much.
That
So
and the school bell just being a monster's face that
Yes.
goes ah.
Awesome.
Every time they showed the school bell, I laughed. I'm like, it's
Yeah.
just a face on the side of that building just screaming ah.
Did it actually make the tonal bell sounds in the dubbed version? Da na na na.
Oh, I watched sub.
Did you?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, because I caught that on the sub.
I saw the dub's not done with all 24, so I was like, I'm not going to switch halfway.
Yeah, I was worried about that. I am gonna have to switch because I did watch up. I didn't notice. I thought he was just screaming to scream.
Okay. Just curious.
He's met by Asmodeus, and then they go to the hall to summon familiars, where this teacher Caligo. We are going to talk about Caligo, the character, in a minute, but I want to get past the part that's important about his character. He's like, "Hey, you losers, watch this instructional video," which is a recurring gag that happens throughout the series, which is fantastic. It's like this heart that is spazzing out. The heart with a
She
face,
seems
but
terrified.
It's like doing a Five Nights at Freddy's freak out while it's doing instructional videos, and Caligo hates him. So like before it finishes, he smashes the mirror that's playing the video because Sullivan, the principal, forces him to show these videos.
But not just show the videos on this mirror that has a border of like hearts and flowers and like it's
And this is a guy dressed like in all black. He almost looks like a preacher because he has the white spot in his collar. And so basically, demons, to go to school, they summon familiars. And he's like, you're going to do it my way. You're going to use my seal. There's no bending the rules. You're going to get it done. And if you don't, get the heck out. And everyone starts, Asmodeus summons this fire serpent. And everyone starts summoning their familiars. And Iruma comes up and he's like, oh, I'm going to get expelled. But that's probably for the best, then I won't get eaten in demon school. Since I don't have any magic powers, I can't summon anything. And then the narrator of the series then explains to us that humans can summon things, but they don't summon familiars, they summon demons. And since he's using the teacher's seal based on instructions when he does the spell, he summons the teacher. who's like half through a portal behind him, and because he pushes him through the portal, he becomes his familiar. Whenever he's in familiar form, he's this tiny little fluffy bird with a cowlick. And he's so mad about it.
He's so upset.
It was at this point I decided, like, okay, if this anime is just this guy trying to just survive and things getting worse and worse, no matter how normal, and like no blame to him, it's just life is constantly crapping on him, I'll be okay with it. And so I was like, okay, I think the comedy will get me through this. But this is now a good time to talk about Caligo, the teacher, who is, he's Professor Snape if Harry turned him into a house elf, if you know your Harry Potter lore. So what did you guys think of Caligo?
I love this character so much. He's what got me through, because he kind of embodies how I feel about some of these anime tropes that I just cannot stand. But his just overall demeanor of, I'm just trying to get through my day and I hate you all. Don't talk to me. Just listen. Is fantastic. And I love that he's one of the most powerful demons, like, of the teachers. But at the same time, he's very much about the rules. In fact, we find out later one of the rule books he wrote. Like, he respects the rules, like, to a T. And so, like, he never hurts the students, like, with his hands or anything like that. And he's very much about student safety. But yeah, he's just can't.
He let 2 students die at one point, and he was just like, they died.
And he was ready to blow a student's arm off.
Yeah,
But true. But
Which
actually,
he
he did mention that if familiars disobey, they will be severely punished. So we get a really great gag of that because he's so pissed.
Yeah,
Yep.
familiar cannot disobey or they get pain, so he literally has to do whatever Iruma tells him. When he does specify later, only when you have summoned me, otherwise it does not work. And again, so this is just a thing that makes Iruma more infamous. He's the demon who summoned a demon, which has never been done before. And I'll be honest, every time this joke comes up again, I laughed every time.
Every time.
Very funny.
Yep. And that's the thing, is like, there's very few animes that have me do anything but either a smile or a chuckle. I laughed more at this anime than I have in quite a few animes in quite a while. So, but what about you, Jerry? What did you think of this teacher?
I loved the jokes revolving around this teacher. I liked him as a character. He was really entertaining. Basically all the same things you guys said. Up to this point, I think he was probably my favorite character, and it wasn't until Clara got introduced that I wound up switching. But yeah, he was a constant throughout the whole first 13 episodes. That I absolutely loved his shenanigans. Yeah.
Speaking of Clara, that's the next thing that happens is they're walking down the hall and they get introduced to this crazy. How do you explain Clara, man?
She is just impulsive and a completely free spirit, and nothing holds her down.
Yeah,
she's not all there.
She's this short little girl, no like feminine features except for like long hair,
little bit pudgy,
little pointy teeth. Come play with me kind of thing. And I told Jeremy she's Deadpool. Her pockets literally have the ability to create anything she wants, and not based on size or mass. She creates vending machines, which she uses regularly as a weapon, multiple times in the series. She creates food, snacks, whatever she wants for the occasion. So she never breaks the fourth wall. That's her only non-Deadpool thing. But she literally, does that magic cartoon. I can pull anything out of here. What do you want?
Yeah. She reminded me of Blanca from Street Fighter.
She does have a cool spin.
Because of the ball. She'll spin, yeah.
Thoughts on Clara?
She was so irritating, and then she just, the jokes surrounding her are so great. And again, this is another character that in any other anime I would absolutely despise. And somehow she pulls off her comedic bits so well, especially in a later episode where she gets the advice that she needs to put a little perfume on in order to attract a man. So she dumps an entire bucket. It's stuff like that that just gets me. I'm like, okay, I could let this one slide.
Yeah, she's absolutely awesome. Everything that she does just has this sort of shock element to it. You don't know what to expect with her, and the moment that you think you understand what she's going to do next, it's actually a little bit crazier than what you imagine. Like she named her shoes, but they're not just named; they're actually alive, but they're slippers. Like even just the way that she's dressed, it's so casual. It's so like I don't care about anything. She's wearing socks with slippers, which is a big no-no, and they look like I don't know, get out of bed and put on your slippers, not like Birkenstocks or sandals, but actual like bedroom slippers.
Like little kid slippers too, with faces on the front.
Yeah. And but they also give her a level of character development that I kind of want to say nobody else really gets as much character development. I mean, in more than one situation too. Like she has a situation where she realizes that, maybe Iruma is actually interested in her not just because of the things she can create. She has another one later where she's actually developing from a 2% to a 10%, right? And that has more to do with a personality change than it does to do with anything else. I mean, it's really interesting. That such a crazy character can actually also have, because I can't think of any other characters that had that much character development. But yeah, I loved her jokes. She's great.
I did love how they'd have that whole scene that we'll get to in a second where Iruma looks at the shoes and they look back at him. He's just like, ah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, like I said, she's the wild card of the story. And when she's introduced in this episode, I was like, okay, here we go. Here's that character in every anime. One character that's going to grate on you. And she does work in this, and maybe it's because she's used sparingly. She does have like an episode or two focusing on her, but she's that random element that pops in the background and makes a joke. My favorite joke from her, they're in a library looking at a book club, and she's in the background chewing on a book while the scene plays out. And then when they leave, him, Iruma, and Asmodeus are talking about the book club,
that too.
And you hear Clara just say, "I learned books are tasty," and Iruma looks at her like, "What?" And I lost it. It was so random. It was very set up, but it was never the forefront of any of the scenes. And that's what she brings. She's this random chaotic energy, and she also gets the only music video in the 13 episodes, which we'll talk about when we get there.
That's too bad.
Yeah, that was painful.
So her episode where she's introduced, after that introduction of the last episode, she basically just wants someone to hang out with and play with her, and Iruma and Asmodeus agree, who she nicknames Azaz, and she wants to play Murder House. And Iruma has to be a tree, and Asmodeus is like the dog or the mother or something. Like, she keeps changing their roles. They also find a gated up locked door in this scene, and I only remembered it because it was in my notes when I was going back through. I completely forgot.
That's right, they did.
There's this locked huge door with like 8 chains and locks on it, and they're like, "What's that?" And they're like, "All right," and they walk away. And I don't know what that is. I'm assuming that'll be important later. And then we learned that she does have friends that show up and are like, "Hey, can we have some snacks and some drinks from your magic pockets?" And she gives it to them, and they leave and are laughing at her. And basically, the story is anyone's ever hung out with her puts up with her because they can get stuff from her. And so she goes to Iruma and is like, "Hey, I can make you like extra snacks and stuff, and we'll play more today." And he's like, "I don't want anything from you." And you could see he was already feeling bad, like he had already taken a drink earlier. And she starts crying, like, "Oh, just another person who doesn't want to spend time with me." He's like, No, I want to spend time with you, but I don't want anything from you." And then those bullies come back, I changed her name from Prince Bullies, and they were asking for more stuff. She's like, she takes a vending machine and drops it on them. Buy all of the snacks you want from that.
I think one of the things that endeared me to her in this particular episode, because I still didn't like her at the end of this one, is the fact that she wasn't this bimbo that was just being taken advantage of. She knew the arrangement she was in. She was just so desperate for attention that she was willing to go through that bullying. And that was much more endearing than just they're really taking advantage of me.
Yeah, she's not stupid. She's just eccentric and weird. Very much so. We do get Grandpa Sullivan gets to meet his new friends. Iruma goes to lunch with them. We find out, this is like the first time we find out about ranks, and that students have different ranks. And it turns out all demons are ranked on a 1 to 10 system, and what you're allowed to order off the menu is based on your rank. And one thing that Iruma loves demon food. He doesn't know what any of it is, but it's super tasty, and he can eat a ton of it. I don't know if that's going somewhere or if that's just the anime trope joke that they want to use. It's hard to tell. But here, like, he literally burns out the cook in the kitchen, and the cook passes out from trying to keep up with Iruma's stomach.
I feel like it's definitely a nod to
Goku.
Well, not just Goku, but Shonen in general. But since he's the only human in this world, he's the only one that can do it. So
maybe it's stabled humans that most of them don't think exist, but they're, farming.
And then we get this great scene. We meet this side character here who is a gift shop owner in the school, who is like Clara's public enemy number 1 to him, because she comes into the store and just starts making the stuff he has, and he's like trying to kill her. He's like, she is banned from my store. And then
he looks like a black mage.
Yeah,
from Final Fantasy.
Yeah, he's just in this, and he has a float in the end credits too. There's a float of his face. But while this is going on, the teacher Caligo comes in. He starts yelling at them. And Clara steals a summoning sticker and slaps it on Iruma, which means Caligo gets transformed into his bird form. They end up running away, and he has to pay the store for everything Clara stole.
Yeah.
And then they have a conversation about being friends. And they don't know what friends mean.
That's what killed it for me. That's where episode 3 was like, what? This is where we're going? It's this innocent? It's this pure? Where they're like, oh, we don't know what this word is, friends, but our eyes are lighting up as you describe its definition to us. And, oh, this is so wonderful. We're friends. And I'm just like, oh, God. Oh, God, no. But honestly, it definitely redeemed itself later for me.
Honestly, I was waiting for them to put their hands together and draw a smiley face like in another anime.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Niver.
Take your shot, people. Nivers come up. All right. So after the nice friendship moment, and then in the ending scene, we find out they went back and repaid the store owner. And then we find out that Iruma and apparently Asmodeus and Clara have been put into the misfit class by Sullivan, which they don't really explain what it is. I thought it would be like the idiots, but it's really just kind of like the weirdos and troublemakers.
No, I think it was more of a reflection of like the bad kids, the ones that constantly get in trouble.
Yeah, because there's a guy who has a compulsion to steal, and he has like magic that makes stealing super easy for him. And then we have the character we're about to meet, who literally attacked the teacher on the first day of school because he thought that'd be the best way to
rank up.
Ranking. Yep.
And there's also Owl Minoru. I knew you'd love that character.
Yep. He's not as annoying as the real Mineta.
That's
from My Hero Academia, but he's definitely a kindred spirit. He's not as pervy. But
He's pretty close.
I did write down like all these characters' names, but other than they're just random, they seem like they'll be important later. Oh, sorry. One thing we didn't mention in the intro: these guys fight Fat Cthulhu in the intro. Am I the only one who noticed that it was like a Cthulhu who let himself go a little bit?
My eyes rolled so hard when I saw that. I thought they were gonna fall out of my head. When I saw that, I was like, okay, this is definitely not one to take seriously.
I kind of want Fat Cthulhu to like show up in the story though. All right, back to where we were.
Mythology.
They go to the classroom, and there's all these dangerous weapon traps that they have to go through, and also their classroom is in an underground cave located like far away from school.
Those traps were a prank. Those weren't normally there.
Yeah. They were set by the other students, and they'd already been used once on the character we're about to meet, Sabnok, who refused to dodge them because that's not the manly way. So he's just got axes and spears standing into him. Whereas Iruma comes in and is able to dodge all of them. So they're like, "Oh, that's so cool." But then they do meet the character Sabnok, and he is this super powerful brute guy. I do like his power. His power is if anything he bites, he can turn into he can make a weapon of that material. So he carries like silver and steel necklace on a necklace, so he can make them. But he's just a meathead who's obsessed with becoming the Demon King. And man, his backstory of like why he wanted to become a Demon King, and then he's like, yeah, none of that happened. I just think being a Demon King's so cool.
Yeah.
That was a great gag. I loved that one.
That was a good gag.
Okay, what did you guys think of of Sabnok though?
He is endearing. He's such a good character. He comes off as like this barbarian demon. He's the only one that doesn't wear normal clothes. Everyone else wears like shirts and slacks, and he's in like this like demon like armor outfit that shows off his burly chest, and he gets some great character growth as well in this next couple episodes, but I loved how he's this big burly dude, but later on when we find out, oh, there's books on the Demon King. Oh, I want to study those.
Yeah, he's just obsessed.
That scene is fantastic though, because it's the Demon King Club, and he's like, "Oh, cool!" And he goes in, and it's all just like nerds, like, "Who do you think the Demon King will be? Let's make predictions again." He's like, "These are my people."
This huge dude that summons battle axes, right. Two-handed battle axes. He's like, yeah, these people.
Again, the humor does work in this anime.
It's got some good twists. There were times when I thought that he was a little bit silly in the sense of like he wanted to be the Demon King so badly, but when Iruma would do something that would perhaps outshine him, he was really gracious about that and appreciative and would just pat him on the head and say, "My rival, you're so awesome, my rival." And I just kept thinking, this is hell. This is like the demon world, and these guys are all so good. Like, nobody's really evil. Everybody's good. Even the guy who's the rival he's good. He's like complimenting the protagonist for beating him.
That's my theory that we talked about in the pre-show.
Yeah, and I totally agree with you, but I don't know, it's a little tough for me to stomach.
He's a little one note for my taste, but he's not in it a lot. He's very much a very side character. He kind of gets these episodes introductions, and he's just comes in for a joke every once in a while. Mm-hmm. The one thing I do like, and it's kind of something I keep repeating, his relationship with Clara is really cool. He takes this kind of like, I'm weird, you're weird, I'll give you advice, and she like defends his honor. Yeah. The episode where she's like, "I'm gonna climb you," and then she looks at Iruma, she's like, "Iruma, climb him," and he's like, "I'm not gonna climb him," and then Sadnok goes, What are you, a chicken? Not willing to climb me?
What are you afraid to summit the mountain of Sabnock?
Yeah, exactly.
Like for some reason, like him and Clara like communicate on the same wavelength where her weirdness doesn't affect him at all. He's completely okay with it.
Yep. I think the thing that's hard for me to stomach a little bit is that this is very borderline slice of life. Like there are such small stakes. Really, there's really no stakes because we saw what was going to happen at the end with the first 30 seconds of the first episode.
Well,
so,
and how important is the role of Demon King really? If they've been years without somebody in that position.
Yeah. And nobody's leaping in to take it. The people that are qualified to do it are like, yeah, I don't really want it. It's not that important. So like,
it makes me laugh. I literally watched that this morning. I can't get over that.
I got stuff to do. I got grandkids to raise.
Yep. So it's missing that element of like, what is making me drawn into a conflict in this anime? And there's really no conflict.
Yeah. Well, besides the Harry Potter, I kept thinking of Rosario plus Vampire when I was watching this because it's very similar setup. It's a human guy going to a monster school and having to he gets stuck there and has to be part of it, and then builds up a group of friends / harem as he goes. But that always ended with a battle. With the vampire girl would grow bustier and then kick a bad guy, and then that bad guy would join the harem.
Yeah,
that was literally every episode for like the first half of it. And this is like, hey, I'm a nice guy. Okay, I'll be your friend. That works for me. There's no need for us to have a battle. Like, there's never anything like that. It's and at first I was kind of disappointed. I'm like, oh, this feels like a weaker sauce. Once I kind of accepted what it was like, this is just a really family-friendly kind of story, I guess. Then, I guess it works. But like I said, it definitely isn't drawing me in. And I think it's like you said, because there's no stakes to it.
Mm-hmm. If not for Clara, I think that would have been enough to make me be like, I'm done. Yeah.
So in the rest of this episode, they have to basically fly across an obstacle course for their first ranking placement. Caligo administers the test. And there's this area called Cutthroat Valley, and he's like, don't go to Cutthroat Valley. The guardian monster who lives there and takes care of it has been very grumpy lately and will kill you. Don't do that. And Sabnock's like, every Demon King ever through Cutthroat Valley, so
challenge accepted.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing. He's like, no, I said don't. Everyone takes off and flies, except for Iruma, who doesn't have wings, and he gets shoved off the cliff by Caligo to his death.
Baby bird, like, just boom.
Yeah.
Caligo then watches remotely, and we see some of the students, and they have some character moments. Asmodeus is in the lead. Clara's in second place, holding onto his back. And then Caligo's doing really well, but he turns and goes to Cutthroat Valley, where he gets attacked by the Guardian.
You mean Sabnock? Yeah, Sabnock.
Yeah, Sabnock's right. And then Iruma apparently got caught by a demon bird who's planning on eating him. The demon bird drops him into the Guardian's nest, where the Guardian's, what we find out will be its baby, is sitting there with an injury. And he goes to help it, and he's like has a cut in his hand, or he cuts his hand, and the blood, when it hits the demon, heals it, the injury. So very much the thorn, mouse taking the thorn from the lion's paw. But this, for what little story there is, I think this is very important because we learned about the prophecy, and it keeps saying he will heal with blood packs, the demon kind, and then we find out his blood is literally a healing potion for these demons. The baby bird, or the baby guardian bird thing, then gives him a ride. They go to where Sabnock is fighting the guardian and stop the fight. He stops Sabnock, the baby stops its mom, and they all become friends.
Yep.
Which we saw this coming 500 miles away, by the way.
That did not soften it for me at all.
No, as soon as they said there's a guardian of the Cutthroat Valley, I was like, And Aruma's gonna make it.
And
Yes.
One thing you
Yes.
could say about this anime is it's 1000% predictable. Like
Yeah.
you know where it's going. As soon as you meet like a character, like oh, that's the club he's gonna join. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. No, the only thing that's got it really going for me are the jokes. The jokes are landing really well.
Yep.
All the students make it to the finish line except for Iruma and Sabnok, who show up last, but they are riding the Guardian, which is super impressive.
Calico's like, well, they died, and erases their names.
Yep, takes their names off the clipboard. But yeah, they do arrive. They get put in punishment, like a punishment circle or something that they have to sit in due to being last and going to Cutthroat Valley.
Yeah, Claire's awesome.
And then after this, they all have to reach into the ranking owl, the sorting hat. I mean, the ranking owl, who will tell you your power level. I think the highest is Asmodeus, who gets a 4.
Correct.
Which is for their age and.
I thought he got a 3.
No, he got a 4. Clara got a 3. Everyone else got 2s.
She got a. Didn't Clara get bet? BET?
No, she got 3.
Huh.
Yeah,
because she came in second.
Yeah.
You should also mention that they all have their own names, and I didn't write them down. Yeah, Bet is second. I forget what 1 is.
It's not important.
Okay. When Iruma reaches into the owl freaks out and flies away, which is like never happened or hasn't happened for 1,000 years.
That's right. Calico's like, yeah, don't worry, it won't make a sound. It hasn't happened in like.
And instead of pulling out a ranking, he pulls out a ring that's stuck to his finger, which then a flame monster comes out and starts screaming, which hurts all the demons, but not Iruma, until Clara starts singing to it, which helps a little bit. And then, like, whenever it touches as he passes out, it touches Sabnok, he passes out.
That was a great gag, by the way.
Yeah, and Calico is like, well, I guess I'll take this kid's arm off.
Yeah.
And Sullivan shows up and stops him. He's like, hey, let's not do that. And he's like, this is a, what's it called?
Gluttonous?
The gluttony ring.
Mm.
I have a page behind, that's why I don't have it. The gluttonous feeder ring, which eats magic power, and so Grandpa feeds it a ton of magic power, and it goes to sleep, and it's stuck to him for all time. But he doesn't get a rank, so he's ranked as the lowest ranking. And that is how this episode ends. Then we meet the student council president, who we've seen in a couple of background scenes, a couple setups, and she has been following the infamous school career of Iruma so far, and she has a theory. She is guys, I didn't realize this till like the 13th episode. She has 4 ears.
Yes.
She has fox ears and demon human ears.
So does Opera.
Ears. Oh yeah.
Yeah, any of the Fox-style demons have 4 ears.
I know, like it hit me, and I'm like, "Oh, you also have elf demon ears? That's okay. You have 4 ears. You're a 4. I don't know how I feel about that. Anyway, she's like a fox girl. She's very tall. She's probably the closest thing to fan service this anime has. She's very busty. And she's very powerful. I think she's the most powerful student in the entire school, if I understand correctly.
That's what it seems like, yeah.
And her dad's on the council as well.
Her dad is on the council.
He's like in charge of the demon secret police service or whatever. Yeah.
Thoughts on her, Amari?
Beside the fact that she's the stereotypical powerful busty girl, I actually kind of like this character for her obsession with manga that she can't read.
Yes.
And I actually find those scenes of where she enlists Iruma to read them to her pretty endearing.
Jeremy, what do you think?
Same thing. I got a kick out of those scenes in particular. I think when she presses the book in her library and it just reveals that she has a whole, not just like a bookshelf, but a whole wall hidden back there with like 3 or 4 different entire bookshelves from ceiling to floor with these novels. That just cracks me up.
It's really interesting that we find out in this episode that like most demons aren't aware humans actually exist. They're kind of a myth. They're like, oh man, do you think humans actually exist? Whereas she's like, but my family knows the truth, and we found these human documents, and it's this entire romance series of manga that she is obsessed with, and she can't read it, but she like. The boy bumps into the girl, and what does that mean? Is he enchanting her with spells?
I love some of her misunderstandings, and I think my favorite one is, wait, that girl wasn't cheering them on for their relationship?
Yeah. This was probably one of the only post-credit chibi scenes that I really enjoyed was the one where she walks up to Iruma and like tries to give him that scene where like
she tries to do the hand on the wall move.
Yes, but it like shatters the wall down. And he's like, "Oh God, she's so mad at me," but she was just trying to let him know what she honestly felt, which had nothing to do with romance, and that's what cracked me up the most. Is a great combination. Yeah.
I really enjoy her interplay. I also think it's really interesting to have a character know the truth, because we don't have really any of those yet, except for Sullivan and Opera. So to have she has figured out this is a freaking human. That's the only thing that makes sense. He summoned a demon. That's not something demons can do, which you think most people would figure that out. But she's the only one who put that together. And with her dad being a cop, it all makes sense that she's the one who would look into this. But which this episode is about, she's going to need him to translate this manga. So she's like, well, I'll have him translate the historical documents first, and then I'll turn him in. Very, very interesting addition to the plot, and yeah, she's super cute and adorable when getting read to. Her eyes get so big and sparkle as she's reading love stories to her. I ship it. At the beginning of this episode, Iruma gets both a glamorous chariot to take him to school every day, which he is not a fan of.
Cinderella.
He also gets his hell phone. Huh? Yeah.
Honey funny.
His grandpa gives him a phone so he can text him.
I love how it has horns.
And it has horns. And apparently everyone in this world has a cell phone, so that's the thing.
They're not smartphones, though.
No. After they go to botany class. This is the scene where in botany class they use magic, and they get these flowers that if you use your magic, it'll grow into something representing your magic, or representing you. And so, like, the ice lady makes an ice flower, Az makes a fire flower.
Sabnock proceeds to put out with water.
Yeah.
What a jerk.
Sabnock and Az do not get along. The best flower goes to Clara. It's just
100%.
It's like all this mutated weirdness, and then the top is like covered in tar, baby duckling screaming in terror.
Yeah. And the best part is how
she's like, nothing!
She hides it under her shirt. Yeah. So good.
Iramo's like, well, I'll pretend like I'm trying and I'm failing, so at least I can get through this class. When he does it, he does it and his plants start transforming, and his grandpa calls him and he's like, hey, I forgot to tell you, my magic is in that ring now, because I fed it, and if you can now cast magic through that ring, and because of me, it'll be super, super powerful.
He hadn't tuned it yet.
But yeah, please don't use the ring until I get a chance. Well, it's too late. And so his plant turns into a giant cherry blossom tree, which is another thing that clues in Amari that he's a human, because, hey, look, this human plant is now grown in the middle of our school, which stays there as far I understand, right? Like now they
it
have
ends up being a really wonderful thing that everyone loves.
Yep,
Like you
everyone
would
loves
think,
to go have lunch under the cherry tree.
yeah, people are like camping under it. People love the way it looks, and then even the botany lady later on, she's like, "This is really giving us a representation of what this tower really should be," and like it. I think that was sweet, but I also think it landed less for me because I think it would have been way more funny if it just like toppled the tower over.
Yeah.
Knowing that the student council president is looking for him, and after cleaning up after the mishap with the tree, Iruma is walking through the halls and he bumps into Amari. Doesn't realize who she is, and she freaks out. They have a very, very funny interaction. Like she grabs him, and then he bows, and then like thinking he's attacking, she bows in response, and then they're like stuck in this grip bow together, and she's like, "Oh God, oh what did I do? Is this the boy charm spell? Am I falling for it?" But she drops her manga, and he picks it up and is like, "Oh, I literally used to work for this manga," because of course he's been everywhere. He's done everything for a 14-year-old. And she realizes he can read it, so she basically schedules these reading sessions where he reads and acts out and explains the story of the manga to her, starting from chapter 1. And then she puts her number in his phone. And then we get Opera asking Iruma, like, "Hey, are you wanting to go back home? Is that something you want to do? Because you'd have to rise in the ranks to open the demon doors." And this is the first time Iruma starts thinking, like, what do I want to do while I'm here? And then the conversation comes up with Amari while they're reading. She tells him about her goals, which is to be like, I want to be inspiring to, weaker demons to become stronger, but then I want to become a cop like my father, yada yada. And then she asked for his dreams. Then we get, while they're talking about dreams, Az and Clara are like, "Where is Iruma going?" And they start trying to stalk him, and they introduce the concept of incognito glasses, which are sunglasses you put on that make you invisible to everyone.
They're not just sunglasses either. They're like ridiculous looking sunglasses. They're bright. Like, sometimes they glow. They have weird shapes.
Clara's is literally a mustache, mustache glasses.
With like a pig nose too.
That she sometimes puts on
just for fun.
Without needing to be incognito.
Yep.
She's just randomly put them on. They realize that he's meeting with the student council president. They don't know why. Az is like, this must be some part of the plan that I'm not aware of. But they can't hear what's going on. And then Amari tells Iruma, like, you need to get a goal, and since you don't have one, just focus on your rank for now. Like, you need to raise your rank. You're just a 1, become a 2. And then Clara, who burst into the room to steal back her friends.
With a wrecking ball, mind you, with a crane in the background. Where'd she get that?
She pulls out like magical weapons, and Az is like breaking them with his flame sword. He's like, I can handle that. And then she just like goes all out, goes through the wall. He's like, I can't stop her. Help me. She becomes obsessed about losing this guy to this red-haired lady. So, thanks to advice from Sabnok, she decides to take an elective seduction class.
So good. This is my favorite episode.
In the seduction class, they rank all the girls' hotness. The weird one-eyed monster girl is like the hottest thing in the world.
Her numbers are all blurred.
Yeah, it's so high. Like either it was a gross number or it was a high number. I don't know. Yeah. And then they do Clara, and she's a 2% sexiness.
And as they're gonna show the number, the teacher is like, I can work with this. It's like, oh my god, it's a 2.
She's like, babies are a 3.
Yeah, exactly.
Which, even in context, talking about baby sexiness is just odd. It's just
really weird.
So she gives Clara all these special books, and we get this montage of Clara trying to be more seductive towards Iruma with
So good.
like, hey, do a pose where you pose your hips and stick out your arms. So she's doing like weird body poses in front of him, and basically everything she takes, she distorts it in her weird way. It makes it ridiculous. And
The frilly one is great.
yeah, the one with the
God,
yellow
the fact
suit.
that Az actually comes over and drags her away and says, "Why do you always do weird stuff like this?"
I love the one where he takes her away.
So good.
And then after a day of no results, she goes home, and we see her family, which is like she got 2 little brothers and 2 baby sisters, and a mom. And they see she's really depressed, and they all give her a smooch, and then she starts smooching all of them, and then they sing the smoochy smoochy smooch song.
I was just like, "What the hell is this? What is going on?"
It's so out of left field. This entire sequence.
Smooch, smooch, smooch. Who's number 1 in the cuteness world? It's Clara.
Oh my god.
Guys, I loved it. I've listened to it a dozen times.
Are you kidding me?
Wow.
I had to show everyone in my family, I'm like, guys, you gotta hear the smoochy smooch song.
Smoochy smooch song.
Oh.
Yeah. I understand why you don't like it. I guess the weirdness of it, it just works for me. It's a little catchy. And it's so freaking wholesome. It's like,
Yeah, that's what kills me. It's too wholesome for me.
so clean.
I'm a bit more jaded than this.
After some more hijinks, including knocking out Caligo, the teacher, because she tried to kiss Iruma, she's offered a love potion by the teacher. She's like, no. And she talks to Iruma, and he mentions that she's a girl. And that, like, oh, he sees me as a girl. So she stands up, and she declares, like, you're going to fall for me. And actually makes his heart skip a beat. And then walks away, and her sexiness has risen to 10%. And that's it.
That's character development.
Literally measured.
Yes.
And then somehow this inspires Iruma to raise his rank. He's like, okay, I'm going to raise my rank. I'm going to have a goal too. Iruma asked Az for help. They're like, okay, the next test is coming up, and we're going to be playing Execution Cannonball. And they explain the rules, and he's like, oh, that's literally just dodgeball.
Yeah, I love how they went into this whole, like, in the before times, people would murder each other with these, like, things. And they're like, and there were too many casualties, so now we just do dodgeball.
Jason, you have a theory on this world. This seems like the best time to bring it out.
Yeah, so it seems pretty obvious that this world has gone through some sort of revolution a couple generations ago. Because we have things like humans are myth. What's the purpose of a succubus class if there's no humans to seduce and suck their souls from, right? Or like this dodgeball game, we've got a hyper violent, competitive ranking game that we've reduced down to something that's socially tolerable. I think this world has definitely gone through some sort of hyper change. I think with the last Demon King before they left, that has made this world into basically a mirror of reality, but just with some harshness along with it. Like, for instance, you've got, don't break the window with a bat. If you're going to do some damage, break a wall kind of thing. That tough mentality. But at the same time, everyone is respecting everyone else's space. Everyone is respecting everyone's right to life. And it's, I think there's a lot of nuance and sprinkling of an old world. That is what Jeremy was expecting. Like, this is the demon world. This is the nether world. This is a place that is terrible and cruel and, bloodshed. I think it used to be that. But it's interesting to see a peaceful society that has those relics of the past that keep being brought up.
Yeah, I agree with you to a point. I think one of the things that confuses me a little bit would be their lack of understanding certain concepts, not just words necessarily, but but what those words represent, right? Like the concept of friends or the concept of dating, right? If you're going to have a peaceful society, those things would naturally show up. So I think you're right, but I think it's almost like they're modeled after the human society, but they miss the
Yeah.
substance.
And I
so
think they're
it's just
still
like a
within
facade
that.
of it.
I think they're still within that arc because we still have places like
Change.
Cutthroat Valley. We still have,
Uh-huh.
all the islands are not connected together. They don't have a homogenous society, but I think they're on their road to it, and I think they're a couple generations into it. But I think you're right. There's definitely some concepts that they obviously don't understand, and I don't think it's that they don't understand the concepts. I think they just don't have words for those things yet. Because in the Netherworld, what two demons would be friends?
Well, they would come up with some other word for it. I mean, if they have a peaceful society,
Right.
then you have to have friendship.
And I think the characters are just artificially enamored with Iruma's words more than they are the concepts themselves, and I think that's a play for the audience.
I think I would have to counter it and say that I think it's, I think there's a lot of like convenient storytelling where they want to have it both ways. Like they want to have a
absolutely.
world where it's a scary demon world, but at the same time, they want to have it be completely innocuous and safe.
I think the perception of scary is for the audience and Iruma only, and I don't think the rest of the demon world sees it that way. And also to bolster your comment about friends, the group of bullies, what would they call each other? I mean, they're obviously a group of friends that are mean to Clara, but what word they use for that. So I think they understand the concept, but in that moment when Iruma was saying friends and like describing what it is, I think after his description they would have used their word for friend after that. Like, oh, that's this. But
I think it was a temporary alliance, but you could be right.
yeah, maybe.
Well, I mean, we do see battlers in clubs. Oh, you mean clubs? Well, we call it battlers. They do have
you're
this
right.
concept. They just have a different word.
Right.
I just have a hard time believing this is that thought out, or that they care enough.
Yeah, that's fair.
With that said, the theory that kept coming to my mind is like the piece they're missing, what their society needs, is just a kind and loving ruler. That's like the last step. So I can kind of see where Jason's coming from, but the more I watch, I'm like, I just don't think they care. I think this is just a world with a mansion with a road to a high school.
Yeah.
that serves the plot.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, and there's
agree.
obviously different locations because we see Az in bed in his house, right? We don't know where that house is or how far away it is.
And yeah, people are obviously flying from somewhere. I just don't think the writers want to think about those places.
Well, there's also places that they mention where when they're talking the 13 in the last few episodes, they're talking about beyond the borders in other cardinal directions, right? So like there's more than just this nation that we're experiencing as well. And maybe they're a little bit more barbaric. It would be interesting to see the conflict between the two and see the kind of cultural difference.
But I like that, Troy. I didn't think that far ahead that perhaps what this path to peace looks like, they necessarily will need a demon king who is kind-hearted and needs and is looking to heal everyone.
I think at the end of episode 13 when they're like, hey, we still have all these problems because we don't have a demon king. I'm like, kind person doesn't seem like he would solve those. That seems like it makes it worse.
Yeah.
They're like, we are out of food. We need to eat people. We gotta keep going. So they practiced dodgeball. Obviously, Iruma was very good at the dodging part. The other students in the class come to play, and he realizes that they use their magic powers on the ball. And we get to see some of them use their powers. So it's almost like this class is very similar to My Hero Academia. Everyone has their own power set, but it's just their magic.
I do love that Grandpa says, hey, use this word when you throw the ball.
Yeah.
Right. So that's what comes. Iruma goes to Grandpa next for help to get better. And he's like, "Oh yeah, use this magic spell," and it's like a Dragon Ball. That sounds wrong.
Oh my god!
It's literally a dragon with the ball in its mouth.
Right.
Yeah, I never put it that way. That's funny.
Iruma is like, "Hey, thank you, but I don't want to use your magic for me to get good at something. I want to do this on my own." So he tells Opera to train him, And Opera basically focuses like, hey, you're super good at dodging, but you need to be able to catch the ball, which I actually found really cool because this whole time has been like, hey, the one strength this character has is he can dodge, and now it's suddenly his weakness and his goal. He has to literally overcome his instincts and do the opposite of what he wants to do. That was interesting, but this is just a sports montage.
Yeah. This is where I was telling you, hey, it's a sports anime now. But this actually reminded me a lot of like when you have a little kid or anybody that's afraid to catch a ball because they don't want to get hit by the ball. That actually is a real reaction. It is hard to overcome that at first. So I kind of thought that was cool.
I did love Opera's piece of advice of, use that fear and turn it into motivation. That was pretty good.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting, yeah.
Yeah, after being able to catch the ball on the day of the test, that Opera tells him like, "Hey, just some advice. We demons, fear is not allowed to be part of like what we do, and so even when we feel fear, we just like you face it. You get more bold to overcome it, and that's how we operate. And that's what you need to do if you're going to do this."
So Sabnok's terrified all the time.
So they go to the test. It's time for dodgeball, and Asmodeus gets put on the other team, which is really funny because they're not even noticing they're carrying different colored sashes, and they're like, "Oh yeah, let's go!" And oh no, Asmodeus spends the entire game of dodgeball thinking, "How can I help Iruma?" Which is fantastic. So we see everyone else playing. Clara creates like 1,000 balls out of her pocket. Iruma manages to catch one. People are getting out. And when Iruma catches one, he's like, "Oh, I don't know how to throw it. I never learned that word." And Sabnok's like, "I'll do it. I'll throw it." So he takes it. He throws it at Az, who's deep in thought. And Az just like one hand catches it. It's like, and throws it back and beats him. And then immediately Clara's like, "I will avenge you." And then the same thing happens to her. But the game goes on until it's just Asmodeus and Iruma, and Asmodeus is like, "Oh, crud, I blew this." And at first he's like, "Okay, I'm gonna lose and help Iruma." And then he sees Iruma, and Iruma's like putting his heart and soul into it. He's like, "No, I need to do my best. That's make this competitive." So he throws his most powerful fire blast ball at Iruma, and Iruma does a catch.
Judo?
Yeah, judo.
Yeah,
judo throw.
Move. Yep, using the energy to redirect it and manages to hit Az and win the dodgeball game. And his rank goes up, and Amari came to see him because she's deeply in love with him.
I love how the teacher's like, "Hey, Az, I was about to expel you, but you didn't let him win, so you're okay."
Yeah, he's like, if you had let him win, nothing was gonna happen, just so you know. But I could tell you tried, so 1 rank up. He's like, that's like a 2 rank move. He's like, hey, shut up. We see a new guy arrive at the school the next day. More reading of manga. Oh, so this new guy is a familiar teacher. I thought he was a student, but nope, he's a new teacher, and apparently he had missed like the first week of school because he had gotten lost or whatever. He's new to school, and this is his first day finally showing up. And he's the familiar teacher, so he takes the class. He's like, "Okay, everyone, summon your familiars. I want you to spend time with them." We get to see Clara's familiar, which is like this lizard man dog who throws balls for her to fetch, and she's his pet.
Yeah.
The moment he said we need to summon familiars and spend time with them, I was so looking forward to this episode because I'm like, oh man, here we go.
So yeah, everyone does theirs, and then he goes to Iruma. He's like, "Hey, you need to summon yours." He's like, "I really don't want to." He's like, "Well, you have to. That's the class." So he summons
in the middle of an argument.
Yeah, Galago's in the middle of like, "Hey, you have another student complaint about you." And then, so he summons Caligo, and he's like, "I'm so sorry, teacher. We don't have to do any of this." And this familiar teacher, whose name is Robin, I think, unless I misheard it.
Yeah, Robin's his last name, yeah. Robin. Or first. Yeah, I was getting backwards.
Robin's like, "Hey, no, the rule book says you have to try your best." And so Caligo's like, "Look, I don't like that I'm your familiar, but if I'm gonna be your familiar, we're not getting bad grades.
Yeah.
So he's like, and Robin's like, play with this, and it's a frisbee.
This is such a good scene.
Calgo's just
so
like,
good.
I'll fetch it. It just walks up and then drags it back like so reluctantly. So
And like you could hear all the children, everything that everyone's saying is just on his psyche, just like it's taunting him.
yeah,
It's so
the
good.
important thing is though is everyone except for the new teacher knows that Caligo has become the familiar of the student. So he's like, this is just a really cute bird you got. That's so cool. He doesn't realize he's talking to his senior teacher.
Yes.
Then they have this touching scene where basically Caligo, after doing a bunch of tricks and games, Caligo's like, "Hey, why didn't you summon me when you fought the guardian monster?" He's like, "Well, I didn't want you to hurt the guardian. I didn't want you to get hurt." He's like, "Oh," and then Az and Sabnock are about to fight with their familiars, and Caligo, in his little plush bird form, knocks both those familiars down. And is like, "Hey, that's not how you work with familiars. You need to respect them." And like, well, they do what we say. It's like, yeah, they don't kill you. They'll kill anything else. Like, you need to understand, these are monsters.
They will eat you guys.
Literally, only one of you seems to understand this. So it's like the first time he's had respect for Iruma.
And he also
then,
it snaps Robin into shape as well.
Yep.
In bird form.
And then Robin doesn't understand why this dark-haired teacher hates him after that day.
Yep.
And then we learn about the battlers, which is basically school clubs. Az suggests joining a battler to help raise their rank, and I was like, that sounds great. He's like, okay, good, because the hunting of the freshmen is about to begin. So in this school, for like 36 minutes, one day a year, the seniors in their clubs get to go hunt freshmen to recruit them and capture them and bring them in. And Asmodeus protects Iruma, but like you see so many like, we grabbed like 6 kids, they're gonna be great in our club. Which is funny because you only see like 2 or 3 clubs, and we find out there's a lot of clubs. But one club that shows up is Amory for the student council. Everyone's like, oh yeah, she never recruits. They always just come and watch. And she walks right up to Iruma, and Az is like, you know, we're a club too. You could join. And by the way, they use battlers, but I'm using club because that's easier.
And everyone thinks that she invited Asmodeus and not Iruma.
Mm-hmm. She invited Iruma because her internal thought was, this isn't because we could read more or anything. And then we get the bell rings and the whole stealing, but then the rest of the students who weren't captured get to then pick whatever club they want to join in. They have 3 days to tour and explore them. And while walking the halls, Iruma's ring pulls him to this random guy with a giant backpack. And the guy's like, hey, yeah, I have this necklace that does a very similar thing. It stores magic power. And they're made from the same metal, so that must be why they attracted each other. And basically then we get a bunch of episodes. Sullivan changes the ring so it has the power settings now. You can do weak, medium, or high. And then there's one where you can release all the magic at once, and he uses them in the emergency spell, which I'm guessing will be important.
He starts to recant it, and Sullivan's like, no! Emergencies only!
We see him play with a couple clubs. We've mentioned like the book club and the Demon King club, those jokes that come up. So there's just some really great montage here of exploring the clubs. But eventually he goes to this club with this character named Curio. There's not really much to mention about him other than he's this very weak demon. He's a senior, but he's only a level 2. And his entire thing is he's the magical apparatus club by himself, and he wants to build a magical apparatus that changes power, can enhance power levels of weak demons so that there's no longer a social class structure. Because Iruma's noticed that like everything is about ranking. If you are low rank, you are garbage in this world. And it should also be mentioned though that Amory is like going all out in decorations for the student council.
Yeah.
For Iruma to come. And he calls her. He's like, hey, I'm not going to be able to make it because he's this Curio character is like coughing blood. He's very sickly.
Yeah.
He's almost always dying. And he decides he wants to join that club. And he's very good at putting pieces together. So he's like, "Oh man, that would be so helpful." And then I was kind of hoping Az and Clara would join their own clubs and have their own little things, but they decided to join this club as well. Because I kind of thought Az might have a problem with the objective of this club. The character Kirio points out, like, powerful demons probably would hate what I'm trying to do here. And then you have, like, the most powerful freshman being like, "Oh, I'm going to help." All right.
Yeah. Right. The one thing that supersedes everything else for Az is, does Iruma like it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's true.
Especially when he's a character who's like, the reason he follows Az is because, or Iruma is because Iruma's so powerful to him. So it seems like this would be very much a knock in the face of his beliefs, but that's fine.
Yeah.
After this club stuff, which might become more important, so we can talk a little bit more about it with the next episode group. But the end shows Sullivan has to attend a meeting of the high-ranking demons, and we see there's at level 665. Speaking of 666, you ever notice that?
They pointed out.
Sullivan does the okay, but it's a 666 with his hand.
Yes.
They put it out like 3 times. It's like, okay, we get it.
Yeah. At level 665, there's like these 13 demons, and they're discussing economic issues, and it's like basically
there's only like 7 of them in there.
Yeah, no one's showing up. They're like, "We need a king." And they're like, "Okay, well, we have 3 people that could be it," and they all like different ones, and they don't know who to pick. And then we see those 3, and so it's Sullivan, another old guy, and a old lady who's 2 years younger. And they're like, "All right, let's get down to business." And the old guy and the lady pull out pictures of their grandkids, and they're all like comparing. And they're like, "All right, Sullivan, you're the judge again." And Sullivan's like, "Not this time. I got a grandkid too." And then they're like, "Hey, should we pick a demon king? I think it should be you, Sullivan." Sullivan's like, "Dude, I just want to be a grandpa right now. No, I'm good." I'm like, "Okay, no demon king." And which, okay, I thought at the beginning, yeah, Sullivan's got a plan. And then, like, oh no, this is a perfectly explained realization of why he would want a grandson. This is really just to have a grandson?
Well, I think I have to agree with what Jason said earlier, where he's planning to use a grandson to be the Demon King. Not himself. Like, there's no point in him being.
No. Yeah, I get it. He could literally be the Demon King right now if he wanted. Mm-hmm. Literally, at this point, he's like,
"Oh yeah."
But honestly, the fact that he even considers it kind of feels like it debunks it. But I don't know. You could be right. And there, that was my initial thought going into this, so it's very possible.
I think I see it as like this society, like Jason was saying about the societal change. This society needs to change. There's a prophecy describing how the Demon King is supposed to come about. So it looks like he's going and finding someone that can fulfill the prophecy, because maybe it'll fix all the things that no demon could.
I mean, that makes sense. Maybe. Okay. One of the guys from 665, who is Amari's father, we see him get a text message of a picture of Iruma, and then he goes into the room at 666, and he's like, "Hey, Sullivan, we're arresting you for dabbling with the other world." Or the other,
Specifically crossing the border between worlds, I believe, is the charge.
Yeah, unsanctioned.
Yeah.
And he has a warrant for his arrest, and that's where we leave it for these 13 episodes. Any last thoughts on this final scene?
It's funny seeing Sullivan in jail screaming out for Iruma while Iruma's just doing whatever.
Bail me out, grandson.
Yeah, exactly.
He's just stuffing his face.
Yeah. All right, let's go to final reviews. Jason, what do you give it?
Yeah, it's definitely a lot of things I hate, but the jokes land so well. It's kind of right down the middle of the road. I'm going to give it a 3.
Jeremy, how about you?
I also have to give it a 3. A lot of the stuff just doesn't make sense to me. I mean, even when I try to kind of put it into place with Jason's suggestion, his theory about the world, it just feels more like it's a writer's situation where it's like, I really want this setting, but I also want this kind of environment for the character. So I'm just going to do whatever feels right in each situation, and it won't always be consistent. But the comedy is really, really good. especially Clara. So yeah, I got to give it a 3.
I think I'll actually be disappointed if it turns out like, hey, we had this grand scheme and this bigger world building going on than you realize. I'm like, oh, that means some of that stuff
Mattered.
Yeah. I kind of think I just want this to be very lighthearted and silly, and because that's kind of the only thing that's selling me on it right now. It's not the story. It's just enjoying lighthearted content that is actually funny. That's not using fan service to make me laugh. It's not using Moneta jokes constantly. So it's working for me now. I'll give it a 3. I almost want to give it a 2, but I laughed every episode, so 3.
Mm-hmm.
And then for what we're watching next is the rest of this series. It's a 24 episode anime, so there's only 11 episodes left. And so we'll be talking about those in 2 weeks. If you want to talk to us about the episodes we've seen and not spoil us, you can reach us on our Twitter at Baka Podcast. You can reach us on our email, theanimebakaclub@gmail.com, or reach us wherever you found this podcast and leave a comment, and we will get back to you unless you are my brother, in which case you need something to fill your time, man. You got to quit listening to us. You don't watch anime. What are you doing? All right, let's go ahead and say goodbye.
Thanks for listening.
Suki Maya.
Sayonara.